Mushi Production has a pretty insane history and lineage, I guess you could call it. When it was first created in 1961, it wasn't done for the sole reason of one man or one team completely wanting to show the world the fruits of their labor in the form of an animated project, although that is exactly what they would do to the tune of many cheers and high praise over the years. It was mainly done out of pettiness. The head of Mushi Production wanted to show its rival at the time, Toei Studios, who would eventually come to create some of the most well-known and recognized anime today, that it could treat its workers better by paying them double what they made at Toei and pay for their food as well. And it worked really, really well. But do you want to know who the head of the recently created Mushi Production was that even allowed for this to happen in the first place? None other than the godfather of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka.
3本の連載漫画が同時進行で執筆されます。少年漫画のファーストシーンを描いていたかと思うと、次の瞬間には時代物のラストシーンを描いています。そうかと思うと、3人の主人公の鼻だけをペン書きするという離れ技もやってのけます。The animation industry back in the 1960s, for all intents and purposes, wasn't anywhere near the size it would soon come to realize decades from now. But for Tezuka and Mushi Production, being the rival of Toei Studios would be a good first step in the door of the anime industry. Competition breeds innovation after all. And until Mushi Production would go defunct in 1973, it would go on a legendary streak of shows it had to offer. It adapted many of Osamu Tezuka's works as well as other original IPs, but their most recognizable adaptations would come in the form of Kimba the White Lion in 1965, Adventures of the Monkey King in 1967, and the original Dororo airing in 1969. But before all of those shows were given the green light for the television waves, there was one story that would air in 1963 and would go on to stand the test of time and would be so revolutionary and influential that it would be remembered in the present day. That story would come to be known as Astro Boy. However, as crazy as it is, even the success of all those shows, domestic and abroad, wasn't enough to keep the lights on, and they would later shut down a few years later before being revived in 1977 as a legacy company. But for the sake of this video, we're going to be focusing on what happened just before Mushi Production went out of business. In 1972, Mushi Production was going through a financial crisis after Tezuka had left in 1968. But because of that, 4 people that worked at Mushi Production as key staff banded together to leave the troubled studio, that being Masao... Is that right? Masao Maoyama. Osamu Dezaki, Rintaro, also known as Shigeyuki Hayashi, and Yoshiaki Kawajiri. Together, they founded the studio that would go on to create some of the most beloved anime of all time, of years past, and in the modern era, Studio Madhouse. Madhouse has been such an anomaly in the anime industry. Outside of Studio Sunrise, which, fun fact, is another studio that sprouted from Mushi Production's downfall, they've really gained the best possible reputation as one of the longest running and quite possibly best studios to exist without any notable problems or controversies, at least from what I could find when doing my research. But to put it in perspective, just what they've been able to produce and accomplish, I wanted to go through every single show of note that they've been credited for animating and producing. Now, unlike what I did for the Cloverworks video, which by the way, it's a banger, so go check that out, I won't be going in depth for almost every single show they've ever done, because then we'd be here for hours. But where we will start is the year 1973. When they first became operational, it was as an outsourcing unit for TMS Entertainment, but their true first credit would be adapting the shoujo tennis manga Ace o Norae, or Aim for the Ace, a
Apologies if I pronounced it wrong. Yutaka Fujioka, the founder of TMS, had provided initial funding for Madhouse, so a decent chunk of their early activity would be contract animation work for that company. In that same year, they also did Samurai Giants, a baseball shonen show that lasted for about 46 episodes. In 1976, they had a long-running show called Manga Sekai Mukashi Banashi of over 120 episodes and concluded in 1979. In 77, they worked with TMS on Ienaki Ko, or Nobody's Boy Remy, along with their Astro Boy clone in Jetter Mars, and that one ran for 27 episodes. Jetter Mars was mainly headed by Toei Studios, which is ironic considering the whole Tezuka drama, but Madhouse is credited with producing it, so all included here. To cap off the 1970s, they have Takarajima in 1978, which, another fun fact, I made a short about that in my niche and obscure anime series and went into more detail there. And in 1979, they have an Ace Onorae movie coupled with 43 episodes of Marco Polo no Boken, which, I'm not gonna lie, never thought I'd hear about an anime of all things about Marco Polo. The 1980s decade as a whole was a bit weird for the history of the studio, as from what I've found makes it seem really unconventional for a studio as historic as this. But for that entire decade, Madhouse Studio basically only did specials and movies, with their first OVA not even coming until 1985, where they did an OVA on Urusei Yatsura for 11 episodes. From 1990 to 1997, they did a lot of projects, and I'm not exaggerating. They produced a total of 32 OVAs, 11 movies, 2 specials, and 3 TV shows, with the most notable of them being Memories, which most recently got brought up in discussion during the Trash Taste podcast due to its star-studded cast of producers, animators, and directors, so go check that out when you can. But the year of 1998 turned out to be a bona fide game changer. This was the year that a jackpot was hit. You have the emergence of Trigun and its debut, along with Cardcaptor Sakura coming into the fold. And on the movie side, you have one of the most beloved psychological horrors to this day in Perfect Blue. That would be about it for their run in the 90s, since 1999 didn't bring about any real showstoppers. But the 2000s. Oh man, if you thought the 90s had a lot of work, just wait until you hear about this. To make things short, Madhouse was able to conjure up as many memorable shows that you know today in this decade than they did total projects in the 90s. Case in point, in 2000, they're credited with Hajime no Ippo's original series and Vampire Hunter D, along with another Cardcaptor Sakura movie with a few specials. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that around this point, they began to switch their strategy from doing mostly OVAs and centering more around movies and TV shows. Whether it was to maintain revenue growth or profitability or some other reason, I do not know. But basically, it was around here that you'd start to see the tide shift. The next year would see them spearheading Captain Tsubasa, a popular shonen soccer show. And this run from 2002 to 2009 is probably one of the most insane runs out of any studio's discography ever. I'll be going in order by year, but I'll still keep it as short and quick as I can. Madhouse Studio is credited with producing Hanada Shonen Shi, which I also have another short about in detail, Tokyo Godfather, Uninhabited Planet Survive, Gunslinger Girl, Gungrave, Technolize, Beck, Paranoia Agent, and one of the most beloved shows in anime history, Monster.
Well, Richard, how about a drink?
And while 2005 didn't have much going for it, as well as basically every other studio for that year, 2006 is the year where Madhouse hit another jackpot. Or should I say, 5 jackpots. Because in 1 year, they managed to put out Paprika, Nana, Black Lagoon, the OVA to Hellsing Ultimate, and Death Note.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
After After that, we have Claymore and the first adaptation of Devil May Cry in 07. One of my favorite animes of all time in Casshern Sins in 08. And finishing off the 2000s is Summer Wars and Redline. And I could go on and on about the historic and storied production process of Redline, but this video is already long enough as it is. But because I only picked the highlights for this decade, I just want to emphasize the sheer number of projects that they had completed. Each category will be separated by their classification, but just take a second to pause at these numbers before I move on. The 2010s for Madhouse Studio could be described as them really starting to become picky and choosy about what projects they wanted to take on. You'd really get a sense of them making conscious decisions about the kind of stories they would love to tell, and not stories that would get them a quick buck. And it paid off quite nicely because it allowed them to put in an ample amount of time and quality into each show they were involved in. 2010 started off with Tatami Galaxy and High School of the Dead, two shows of which are still talked about to this day. Whereas in the next year, you'll have Chihaya Furu and another little known show which you may or may not have heard of, Hunter x Hunter. Yeah, they did the show too. 2012, Madhouse produced The Wolf Children and Diamond No Ace the next year. 2014, they'd shake the world with No Game No Life, and to this day, still doesn't have a second season announcement for it. And in 2015, they really honed in on this year with Death Parade, Overlord, Ore Monogatari, and the show responsible for bringing the caped Baldy to life, One Punch Man. It's a shame they couldn't stick with the subsequent seasons, but this first season was something truly special. Madhouse would work on sequels and other more low-key projects for the next 2 years, but we fast forward to 2018 as they're credited with A Place Further Than the Universe, and that would be the last big-name anime they would work on for this decade. And as crazy as it sounds, they would take an even further step back in the 2020s on the number of shows they would be credited with. It's mind-boggling to think that it's been basically 6 years already, and you could only count on one hand the amount of really notable shows that have made their way into surrounding discussions, as well as near universal praise from fans and critics in Sunny Boy, Orb on the Movements of the Earth, and Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Overall, this studio's legacy is set in stone and way more than deserving of the reputation it garners, and when it's all said and done, I think could also be well deserving of a place on the studio Mount Rushmore of the anime industry. But in saying that, Madhouse may have excelled on the opportunity to create some of the most well-known and beloved anime of all time up to this point. But what they're doing now with one of those 3 shows I just mentioned could catapult it to what I believe could be the greatest anime of all time.
倒すよ。
Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a series made by Kanehito Yamada. It started serializing in April of 2020 to much fanfare, with its first volume completely topping the charts of the magazine Shonen Jump Plus. If you haven't seen it yet, which you absolutely should, Frieren Beyond Journey's End is about a near-immortal elf who finally goes on a journey to discover what life is all about long after her friends and party members who took down the Demon King pass away. Personally, this is one of my favorite series of all time, so I hold it in high regard along with high expectations. And I can guess that someone at Madhouse Studios did as well. And thus, as time passed and more chapters came out, Madhouse was given the green light to release the first episode of the anime in fall 2023. And by the time this video comes out, the second season will have already concluded. Another reason why I hold Frieren in such high regard, as well as Madhouse, is that so many great decisions were made allowing this series to reach its fullest possible potential. The production committee allowed for a budget that brought in so many amazing animators, giving it the maximum quality it could have. It also brought in my favorite director in the industry as a result, in Keiichiro Saito, who also directed season 1 of Bocchi the Rock. And because a first impression is the best impression, the decision to have the first 4 episodes air back to back was just genius. It allowed a movie's length of quite masterful storytelling in one sitting and got so many fans, me included, hooked on the premise. And the rest is history. If we look at pure manga sales, they tell just as encouraging of a story. I wasn't able to find the data of the first volume sales in its first week, but by the time the first episode of the first season aired, about 11 volumes in, it had already sold a total of 11 million copies, and it would only continue to go up from there. When the first season ended, it had basically doubled that number to 20 million. From there, even after the author had needed to take a hiatus, the masses didn't stop buying the manga. Madhouse spurred its growth through a photogenic art style, fluid animation, unique fight scenes, amazing composition. It basically had everything you could want. And when the second season came and gone, it would stand at a total of over 35 million sales. If that doesn't convince you of the popularity this series has, then I don't know what will. As an added bonus, it sits atop the MyAnimeList leaderboard at number 1 with a rating of 9.25. Granted, this site isn't the most reliable since it's prone to review bombing a lot, but it dethroned Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood after however many years and has stayed there since, so that could be considered as an achievement. And an even bigger thing to be proud of is that if Three Realm Beyond Journey's End manages to catch up to the manga sales and critic praise of stories like One Piece, Dragon Ball, or Naruto, then Madhouse Studio will have contributed as one of the biggest reasons why. And it couldn't and wouldn't have happened to a more deserving company. In its 54-year history, Madhouse has gone through almost every era of anime that eventually resulted in bringing it to the mainstream stratosphere it enjoys today. It has contributed so many noteworthy titles that millions of fans have come to know and love. And I believe when it's all said and done, if it even ever comes to that point, Madhouse Studio will truly be one of, if not the outright best, to ever do it. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. It's been a while since I've done a studio deep dive about its history, and I wanted to do another one like my Cloverworks video because that one was actually really fun to make. If you enjoyed the video as much as I did making it, drop a like in the video and comment which show from Madhouse Studios' portfolio was your favorite. Also, let me know if you would like me to do another studio deep dive and what studio you would like to know about next. I have several videos lined up for you guys in the near future, so I hope you're excited. And hopefully we'll have had hit 1,000 subs so I could finally get monetized! But if I haven't yet, it would mean the world if you could join me on that journey to monetization. I'll give you at least 3 Oreos if you do. If you want to check me out elsewhere, I stream on Twitch multiple times a week and we talk about anime a lot as well as play games with the community along with some yapping too. If you want to join the community, the Discord server will be down in the description as well, so come check it out and say hi. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. Next one will be a doozy and I can't wait for you all to watch it. So, until then, stay classy. Peace.